At this very moment, Zelensky is urgently heading to Trump. Talks about ending the war have been cancelled. The unexpected happened, deadlines collapsed, and the terms have been rewritten. Will Kyiv be able to turn the situation around? Watch for all the details.
The peace plan is changing in Ukraine's favor, and apparently the American side is satisfied with everything. Any future agreement must fully respect Ukraine's sovereignty and ensure a lasting and just peace. This is the main takeaway after the negotiations between the Ukrainian and American delegations on the peace plan in Geneva.
It is still too early to announce the results of the negotiations on Ukraine. They are ongoing. I think today was the most productive day we've had on this issue in a very long time.
According to Western journalists, the working version of the American peace plan for Ukraine already differs from what was previously published in the media. The framework document has been significantly revised.
I think that, in fact, certain changes have been made there, and most likely these are really fundamental changes because, well, first of all, on the one hand, the Americans have never denied, and this is true, at least publicly, that some changes can be made to the plan. Secondly, I think that the arguments presented by our delegation were sufficient to convey at least a minimal sense of justice regarding the resolution of the Russian-Ukrainian war.
NSDC Secretary Rustem Umerov stated that the updated version of the American peace plan takes into account most of Ukraine's key demands. Moreover, he states that the document is already in its final stages. Of course, they are not officially disclosing exactly what has been changed. But even the slightest changes are likely to displease Russia. However, as experts say, that is no longer Ukraine's problem.
If they do not agree to a plan that is ultimately coordinated between Ukraine, the United States, and the European Union, then Donald Trump will simply have to increase the pressure on Russia even more. It's all very simple. The so-called plan that was presented, well, it's not a plan, it's just a list of Russian wishes. That's not how things are done, and probably everyone in the world understands that. The Russians thought maybe it would fly, sorry for the expression, yeah? But since it didn't fly, it seems they'll have to come to terms with the situation and voice some of their wishes. Let them present some of their arguments.
For now, the Kremlin is speaking cautiously about negotiations. No threats or ultimatums from them. Peskov stated that they are supposedly closely monitoring the situation, but officially the Russian side was allegedly not informed about the adjustments to the peace plan.
We have not received any information so far. Of course, we are very closely following the media reports, which, so to speak, have been coming in abundance over the past few days, including from Geneva. But officially, we have not received anything yet.
At the same time, Peskov added that this week Russia does not plan to hold talks with the U.S. delegation regarding Ukraine. This is yet another piece of evidence that Trump's plans to hold negotiations before Thanksgiving on November 27th are falling through. Earlier, The Economist reported that the deadline for Ukraine to sign the American peace plan had been postponed. November 27th is no longer the final deadline. According to journalists, questions about the possible suspension of Ukraine's access to American intelligence and weaponry have also been removed from the agenda for now.
As of today, it's clear that the process is underway. We seem to have some time, and perhaps in the near future, we'll see a kind of combined version of this plan and be able to study it in more detail.
But this will not happen until the peace plan is discussed by Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump. Reuters reports that the president of Ukraine will visit the United States as early as this week to meet with his American counterpart. According to sources, they will discuss the most sensitive issues of the peace plan, such as the territorial question.
Breaking news. And for the Russians at the hottest point on the front, Pokrovsk is now a grave for the occupiers. A harsh sweep of the Russians. Our forces did it. A brilliant operation by the Ukrainian Armed Forces that everyone is already talking about. Details coming up.
I hear shelling. Or is it something else?
Moscow and the region. Drones attacked the Shatura power plant in the Moscow region. Preliminary reports say that the power distribution unit of the major state district power plant was on fire. It is this power plant that supplies the capital region of the Russian Federation with light and heat, according to the Russian publication Astra. The season of raids on Russia's strategic facilities continues. Friendly drones paid a mass visit to Kstovo in the Nizhny Novgorod region. The likely targets of the attack are named as the Lukoil Nizhny Novgorod Neftekimorsk Syntes oil refinery and the Siberkstovo petrochemical plant. Ukrainian defenders are also successfully hunting the enemy in the Pokrovsk direction. During the attack by Special Operations Forces on enemy positions, the adversary was either eliminated or taken prisoner. 3 wounded soldiers from an adjacent unit were also evacuated with the help of the NRC.
Over the past week, more than 400 Russian occupiers have been eliminated directly in Pokrovsk itself.
the air assault forces reported the clearing of the central part of Pokrovsk. The Russians were removed from the area of the railway station, the Pokrovsk Pedagogical College, and Soborny Square. This made it possible to block the occupying army's attempts to amass forces there.
In addition, combat and strike operations are being carried out to eliminate small assault groups of Russian occupiers who have entrenched themselves in the urban areas of this settlement. The main fighting is taking place in the area of the apartment buildings, which are being held by the defense forces of Ukraine.
At the moment, the enemy is unsuccessfully trying to cross into the northern part of Pokrovsk via the railway and is suffering heavy losses. The occupiers were also blocked in another hotspot, the Kupiansk direction.
Currently, the supply of the occupying army's military units in the Kupiansk region is being carried out using heavy drones. In addition, it was possible to completely block the further advance of the occupying forces toward the key railway station Kupiansk-Uzlovaya. This is the strategic objective of the Russian occupiers in this direction.
The coming months will be critical for Ukraine. This opinion was expressed by American military officials who visited Kyiv last week. Moreover, the media report that Europe is preparing for a possible halt in aid to Ukraine from the United States.
At the time when information about the so-called 28 points of peace agreements appeared in Western media, Ukraine's defense forces struck Russian territory using specifically American-made weapons. We are talking about ATACMS missiles. The tactical and technical specifications allow for a target range of up to 300 kilometers. Their use would have been impossible without the consent of the U.S. military and political leadership. The U.S. Special Representative to the UN stated categorically that if the Russian Federation does not come to the negotiating table, the United States will increase the scale of military technical assistance to Ukraine and impose additional so-called secondary economic sanctions, this time targeting Russia's strategic economic partners.
Meanwhile, Russia's presence in Europe itself has increased significantly. The UK Ministry of Defence announced the interception of a Russian warship and a tanker. According to the British Military Department, over the past 2 years, the number of Russian ships passing near British waters has increased by 30%.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Erdogan shocked the Kremlin. Crimea is Ukraine and more than that. Sensational statements. Turkey has become the main logistics and energy hub for Ukraine. Moscow is in shock. How did Ankara cut off Russia's oxygen? Watch this. The end of relations between Turkey and Russia. Ankara has confirmed its support for Ukraine's territorial integrity and its readiness to help restore the country after the war. Turkish President Recep Erdogan said this during a joint briefing with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
We once again reaffirmed our commitment to the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence of our strategic partner, Ukraine. At the same time, we, Turkey, are always ready to discuss with Russia any proposals that would speed up a ceasefire and open the way to a just and lasting peace.
In response, Volodymyr Zelensky emphasizes that Turkey is becoming a key partner not only in matters of security, but also in the restoration of prisoner exchanges, a process Ukraine hopes to restart before the end of the year.
Right now, many processes have become more active, and we are trying to ensure that all this activity is directed specifically toward peace, a dignified peace and guaranteed security.
If you look at Turkish policy, it has always been focused on its own interests, both in relation to Ukraine and in relation to Russia. That is, after all, Turkey has not refused, for example, to trade with the Russian Federation. They do everything that is in their own interest. Of course, right now we are entering Turkey's sphere of interest. They support us, to a certain extent they do support us. Turkey's policy very clearly reflects this entire 1,000-year-old Eastern approach, very well thought out, very competent, where first and foremost their own interests, especially economic ones, always come first.
However, there is still a certain tension lingering in the relationship between Russia and Turkey. Russian tourists found themselves stranded aboard the Astoria Grande cruise ship off the coast of Turkey. In Istanbul, the vessel was denied permission to enter the port. There were more than 600 people on board, residents of Krasnodar Krai, Moscow and Leningrad Oblast, who had purchased a 2-week cruise costing about $3,000. The liner was supposed to call at Marmaris, Antalya, Bodrum and Izmir. Earlier, a similar situation occurred with the Sea Bridge ferry, which was supposed to restore cargo and passenger service between Trabzon and Sochi after a 14-year hiatus. Upon arriving in Sochi, the vessel was unable to dock and return to Turkey. Russian authorities explained the refusal by claiming the ports were allegedly not technically prepared and unable to ensure the safe reception of vessels. In Russian media, this is already being called Turkey's response to the actions of the Russian authorities. They say that restricting transport links is becoming a tool of pressure and an indicator of Turkey shifting towards supporting Ukraine and limiting Russia's capabilities in the Black Sea.
Turkey is also considered to be an extremely important and strategic logistics hub for Russia. After all, we must not forget or overlook the fact that both the oil pipelines as well as the gas pipelines that are passing through Turkish territory primarily supply and deliver gas and oil that originate from Russia. This makes Turkey a key transit country in the energy trade between Russia and other regions. Therefore, the Turks, that is the Turkish side, currently serve as a crucial and strategic hub, not only for Ukraine, but also, and perhaps even more significantly, as the most important and the only exclusive hub for Russia. This unique position highlights their vital role in the region.
Meanwhile, Erdogan held a phone conversation with the Russian dictator. According to the Kremlin, the two sides discussed bilateral relations, the war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as regional and global issues. Putin allegedly confirmed Russia's interest in resolving the conflict through political and diplomatic means.
There was an exchange of views on the situation around Ukraine, including in the context of the American proposals for a peaceful settlement. Vladimir Putin noted that these proposals, in the version we have seen, are in line with the discussions at the Russian-American summit in Alaska and, in principle, could serve as a basis for a final peaceful settlement, according to the Kremlin.
President Erdogan, for his part, stated that Turkey is ready to continue its efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace and to participate in any diplomatic initiatives that will facilitate direct dialogue between the parties.
Turkey is ready, as before, to contribute to all diplomatic initiatives and plans that will promote direct contacts between the parties and pave the way for lasting peace in our region, according to the Communications Directorate of the Republic of Turkey.
Although Ankara seeks to maintain its role as a mediator in Russian-Ukrainian relations, its recent actions demonstrate an increasingly clear orientation toward international law and support for Ukrainian sovereignty.